Hey gang, it's Scott here, and hey James, because I'm doing another top 10 video. James posted a video yesterday on the Coen brothers, top 10 Coen brothers movies, and I figure I've got no excuse not to make one of these videos. I've been a fan of the Coen brothers for a really long time, and so yeah, I wanted to talk about them a little bit. Before I get into my actual list, I wanted to mention something about the credits that they've received on their movies, a little fact that you might not have known about. Of course, they've always worked together. Ever since they were kids, they worked together in making their movies. Sometimes they would just write them, like with a movie called Gambit that just got released with Cameron Diaz and Colin Firth and Alan Rickman, which they didn't actually direct, but they wrote the script for. But by and large, most of the projects that they've written have been movies that they've made themselves. Excuse me. When you look at any Coen brothers movie, you'll see they're both credited as director, but for a while they had to split their credits between the producer and director because the rules for the union that all the Hollywood directors belong to said that they didn't allow directorial teams, just solo directors. If you could establish, I guess, the fact some sort of basis for a partnership, a directorial partnership. But they just didn't bother doing that. I think the rule was basically to protect directors who didn't have a lot of power in Hollywood from being forced to share their credit with a producer, maybe even a studio executive, someone who didn't actually direct the movie themselves. So it's there basically to sort of protect directors that way, but that makes it harder for people who are on director teams to get equal credit. For example, the guys who made Eurotrip, the comedy from about 10 years ago, there were 3 directors on it, but they basically had to do something like rock, paper, scissors in order to decide which one of them got the director credit, because it was too much trouble to actually go to the DGA, the union, and say, hey, we're actually all 3 of them directors. So for the first part of their career, the Coen brothers, Joel and Ethan, didn't bother with trying to show people that they were a directorial team, because they didn't really care that much, it seemed. As long as they got to make their movies their way, the credits, the actual specific credits didn't really matter to them. I mean, they both did everything on any movie anyway. But for a long time, Joel got the director credit and Ethan got the producer credit. But in 2004, they released The Lady Killers, the comedy with Tom Hanks. And at that point, they finally had decided, okay, we're gonna, go to the DGA and request that we get co-director credit. And at that point, they're like, you don't even have to ask, go ahead and do it, it's fine. So after that point, all their movies have been credited with both of them as writing the script, producing, and of course directing the movie, which is a good thing because the next movie they made after The Lady Killers was No Country for Old Men, and they won the Best Director Oscar, and if they had won it earlier in their career, only Joel would have gotten the Oscar for directing and not Ethan. Like for Fargo, for example, they were nominated for Best Director and Best Picture for Fargo. But if they had won that year, only Joel would have gotten the Oscar. The Oscar would have only had his name on it, basically. So, interesting little factoid if you'd like. My number 10 favorite Coen brothers movie is Burn After Reading, which is the movie that they made right after No Country for Old Men. Came out in 2008. Brad Pitt is a total goofball. I love seeing Brad Pitt play goofballs and idiots as opposed to really serious sort of glowering types like he does in World War Z or Interview with the Vampire, stuff like that. Madcap comedy with John Malkovich, Frances McDormand, and George Clooney. Just craziness happening, blackmail, all these shenanigans. It's a fairly typical Coen brothers comedy, and that it's people who have no business trying to pull off a crime, trying to get money the easy way by screwing somebody over, and it just all goes haywire. I really like the scenes in which Frances McDormand goes out on dates she goes on a couple different dates, but they go to the same movie. It's not a real movie, it's a made-up film with Dermot Mulroney and Claire Danes, basically. And you only ever see this one scene in which she's like sitting up in a tree, and Dermot Mulroney's trying to talk to her, and he's like, will you come down from there? And everybody in the audience laughs. I mean, the audience in the movie, the audience watching the movie within the movie laughs. And it seems to suggest that it's some kind of running joke, but of course we don't know what the joke is, so we don't know why it's funny. Nice little touch there. I enjoy that. It's a funny movie. Number 9, A Serious Man, which came out in 2009. They got a Best Picture nomination for this, I think. And it's about the Jewish fella who finds out that his wife wants to divorce him. and that one of his students basically is trying to blackmail him, and he's just sort of his whole life is sort of turned upside down like that, and he's looking for answers from his religion. I only saw this movie one time, and I gotta say it kind of confused me. I'll have to give it another look, but I definitely like it better than some of their other films that they made. A couple of movies that you won't find on my list are movies that are actually really popular with a lot of Coen Brothers fans. The True Grit remake, Oh Brother Where Art Thou, The Big Lebowski is one of the most popular movies. I never really was crazy about those films, especially those last two. There are movies that kind of went on a lot longer than they should have, I thought. I mean, there's a point where it could have ended, but they just added like 3 more scenes on the end, and I just didn't understand why. So I'm not as big a fan of those movies as I am of some of the other ones. A Serious Man is a movie that I like, but kind of, you know, I'm a bit baffled by it at times, just like the main character is. But eventually I'll take another look at it and see if I can figure it out better. Number 8, The Hudsucker Proxy. This is a movie that I liked right away. It's kind of shallow movie, and there isn't a whole lot of chemistry between the lead act because it's so tightly controlled. I mean, everything is just very, very rigidly constructed in this, and I think that lack of spontaneity prevents it from connecting to some people. I mean, so many people that I talk to who are fans of the Coen Brothers like something like The Big Lebowski or Oh Brother Where Art Thou are better than The Hudsucker Proxy, but I just love the cinematography, I love the music, I love a lot of the scenes in the film, and of course I love the dialogue. Coen Brothers write great dialogue, and it's just a really, really kind of crazy movie. It's very sort of kid-friendly, I guess you could say, although there aren't any kids in it. But Tim Robbins is the main character. He's basically playing the inventor of the hula hoop, but it's completely made-up history of the hula hoop. He joins this company that Paul Newman is in charge of, and Paul Newman tries to set him up as like a fool who's running the company into the ground so they can grab the stock for cheap because the stock's going to go down, things like that. Jennifer Jason Leigh is in it as well, and man, she just talks a mile a minute, kind of like how I'm doing now. Whenever I make a video by myself like this, as I always do, I tend to run out of breath just because I feel I need to fill the silence. Sorry, a little tangent there. Anyway, it's a movie that I really liked a lot. I love the music. I just love how it's made. It's just a really well-made movie, beautiful-looking movie. Not their most personable movie, but it is fun. I enjoy it. Number 7, No Country for Old Men. This is a movie that I didn't really like when it first came out, because the ending I found really confusing and kind of dumb, and also I thought was dumb what I thought was dumb about it was the fact that there's so many visual callbacks to earlier Coen Brothers movies. You've got this big hotel that hardly anyone seems to be staying in it. That's right out of Barton Fink. You've got a bad guy character driving by and he shoots it at an animal on the road as he's passing. That's right out of Raising Arizona. There's this scene where Tommy Lee Jones goes to investigate Josh Brolin's trailer, and he sees this little mark in the wood paneling on the interior of the trailer, and then it immediately reminded me of the scene from Raising Arizona where this kid scratches the word fart into the wood paneling of Nicolas Cage's trailer, and I saw that and I almost laughed out loud. This is a serious movie, you know, and you know, those little things basically made it seem like they were the directors were trying to get me to laugh while I was watching this serious movie. I don't know, I just didn't dig it. I've gotten used to the movie, so I like it more now. But yeah, that really kind of threw me, and so I sort of spoke out against it at the time. Also, you know, the ending, you know, is a little it's weird. I know it's true to the book and everything like that, but yeah. You know, on a certain level, I just really don't get it. and this is on my top 10 list. You can imagine what I think of the movies that I don't like by them. You know, the movies that aren't on this list, like The Lady Killers, for example, or Inside Llewyn Davis. Oh my goodness, I hated that movie. I really just hated that movie. But I still like them. What are you gonna do? It's funny. When after they won the Oscar for this movie, I read that Scott Rudin, the producer of the movie, they co-produced it with this Scott Rudin character who's done a lot of movies over the years for different people. He actually found the book by Cormac McCarthy, read it, and decided to take it to the Coen brothers for the direct. I'm like, oh, well, maybe that's why they did the movies, because Scott Rudin read the book and was reminded of their earlier movies and said, oh, I'll get the Coen brothers to do it. They're perfect. I don't know. My number 6 favorite Coen brothers movie is Barton Fink. Barton Fink was written while they were doing Miller's Crossing. they had writer's block. They couldn't figure out how to end Miller's Crossing, so they decided, hey, why don't we just take a break and write a movie about a guy who has writer's block. The main character is John Turturro, who's been in a bunch of their movies. He's a New York playwright who gets invited to come to Hollywood and sign a contract to write movies for one of the studios, Capitol Pictures. And he has a lot of trouble doing that because he doesn't understand the genre. He's hired to write a wrestling picture. Apparently this is a common genre in this world where you've got lots of, it's a popular, thing. It's sort of like a cop thriller, but from like the 1930s or something like that. It's about a wrestler who has to protect a woman or a kid, and then confront an evil wrestler in the end, something like that. Anyway, he's kind of at a loss. And he's staying at this hotel, basically this big empty hotel with hardly anyone in it. His next door neighbor is John Goodman, who's also been in a couple of Coen Brothers movies. And he begins to suspect that John Goodman's actually a serial killer. He's very friendly, but there's something kind of slightly sinister about him. Yeah, I enjoyed this movie. I've only seen it like a very small number of times. I saw it in the theater, and I saw it a couple of times when it was on home video when I was living with someone who had a surround sound set up. I've only ever seen the movie in surround sound, and it's really important that you do that because when Barton is sitting in his hotel room, he's listening to sounds through the walls, and that's where the surround sound really comes into play. Without surround sound, it's just not the same movie. So I've never actually watched the movie without surround sound, which means I haven't seen it in a really, really long time. So yeah, if you see the movie, make sure you've got good surround sound because that's very important in the film. My number 5. The Man Who Wasn't There. This came out in 2001, stars Billy Bob Thornton, and kind of combines a couple of other movies that they've done. First of all, you've got the narrator. He's narrating the story from the past, but there's a joke in the middle of the movie that makes it seem like what the narration you're hearing is actually something that he's just thinking as he's going about doing what he's doing, because it's interrupted at a certain point and then he picks it up later on. Really, really great moment. I just, was baffled they could come up with an idea like this. It takes place, I guess, in the 40s or 50s. Excuse me. Billy Bob Thornton is married to Frances McDormand. Again, Frances McDormand, of course, has been in a lot of their films because she's married to Joel Coen. He's a barber. He works in a local shop. And he is approached by a salesman who wants to help him to invest in a new kind of business called dry cleaning, which is apparently something that was uncommon back then. They don't use water, they use chemicals. I'm like, well, that sounds like a crazy idea, but it actually, could be a smart idea, so I'll get the money. Well, he doesn't really have the money, so what he does is he blackmails James Gandolfini, who he believes is having an affair with his wife, into giving him the money, and things just get crazy from there, of course. Another classic theme, you've got this person who doesn't really know anything about committing a crime, tries to do it, and things just go haywire. It's in black and white. It's a really, really, really good movie. One of my favorite movies from that year. Another interesting tidbit about this film is that, excuse me, in order to ensure that they could get sales in overseas markets, they actually had to shoot the movie in color and then degrade it to black and white, because some countries will not accept black and white movies. They just won't buy black and white movies. At least at the time this movie was made, they didn't. And that's a little bizarre, but in order to get the full value for their dollar, they had to make sure that there was a color version available, so they shot it in color. And then for the U.S. prints and prints in other countries that were cool with black and white, they just downgraded the colors of black and white. Interesting, huh? My number 4 film by the Coen Brothers is Fargo, with William H. Macy and Frances McDormand. You all know what that's about. Another kidnapping thing. Or have I done one of those already? Maybe not. I don't know. I can't remember how many of their movies have kidnapping, but it's a few. Anyway, this movie got lots and lots of acclaim. They were nominated for Best Picture, Best Director. I think they won for Original Screenplay. And there's a title card in the beginning that says that it's based on a true story, but they're just messing with you. The Coen Brothers like doing that. They like messing with you. Really great score, great photography, just a really, really solid picture. Probably the first movie I ever saw Peter Stormare in. I don't remember seeing him in anything prior to that, but he went on to have a really good career. He's going to be on the blacklist probably next year as the big villain, because he was in the season finale. Who else? Buscemi, of course. Steve Buscemi has been in tons of Coen Brothers movies, and he was one of the main characters in that one of the kidnappers. Yeah, terrific movie. Really terrific movie. My number 3, Raising Arizona, which was the second movie that they made and the first movie of theirs that I actually saw. Crazy, crazy comedy. You've got Holly Hunter and Nicolas Cage as a couple. They can't have children, so they steal a baby from this wealthy couple that has like 5 babies. And so they're running all over town trying to pretend like this is their kid. And trying to invent a story about, you know, how they adopted their kid so quickly. You know, they got to deal with his boss and his wife. They got to deal with these ex-convict friends of his that broke out of prison, played by John Goodman and William Forsythe. Yeah, great music, really, really insane cinematography. You know, just all these shots that travel and go crazy, all these different angles. It's a really, really fun movie. And when I saw this, I was just like, wow, this is great. So when I heard they were making other movies, of course, I had to check them out. My number 2 is Blood Simple, their first feature film, with Frances McDormand as the main character. She's married to Dan Hedaya, but she's having an affair with John Getz. And John Getz hires a PI to kill the two of them, and things go haywire from there. Really, really great movie, really terrific. They did a sort of director's cut of the movie. I think the movie came out in 1984. They did a director's cut in 2000 where they actually reduced the running time a little bit by trimming some of the fat. Excuse me. One thing that they weren't able to do on home video was include the original songs. When they made the movie, they signed a rights agreement for music for the theatrical release, but not home video, because home video was fairly new at the time. So they had to substitute a different song for the home video release. But luckily, when they did the director's cut of the movie, they were able to straighten out the rights for home video and all that. So now the actual song that's supposed to appear in the film is on home video as well as the theatrical release. So that's a good thing. Finally, number 1, this is a movie I've mentioned many times, Miller's Crossing, which came out in 1990. Their big gangster picture with Gabriel Byrne and Albert Finney, Marcia Gay Harden, John Turturro, J.E. Freeman, John Polito, Steve Buscemi, of course. Big cast, lots of really, really great actors. Just a beautiful movie. Such incredible dialogue. You know, everything about it is just amazing. Love the movie. Just love it to death. Big gangster picture. Great shootouts. It's just totally awesome. And of course, a great score. I should mention Carter Burwell, who's made a lot of the scores for their films. Miller's Crossing, Raising Arizona, Fargo, Barton Fink, The Hudsucker Proxy, No Country for Old Men, and probably most of the other ones that they've done, with the exception of, I think, Oh Brother, We're Out There. He didn't do the score for that one, but pretty much all their other movies he did the score for. Done quite a few good ones. Anyway, there's my video. There's my little top 10 Coen Brothers movies. I'm sure pretty much anyone else who's done this video is going to have The Big Lebowski on there, but not me. Sorry, not a big fan of that movie. I like it. It's okay, but not one of my favorites. Anyway. Thanks very much for watching. Thanks, James, for making the video, and I'll include the link to his video in my description so you can check it out. Appreciate it very much. Take it easy, guys. Bye.